Howdy, folks. Let's continue a little bit with our investigations about mud volcanoes, mountain water, wide rivers, glaciers, and such things. And as you can see here, I have in my playlist about this topic some 366 videos, which I think this number isn't totally accurate because there might be many more and it hasn't been updated since 2 years. So you can see, you probably remember this. If you have seen my previous videos, I have been talking about this feature here. I have been talking about this already 2 years ago. Just for a little context, electrical water volcano in Guatemala, glacial iron deposits confirmed. Increased quake activity near mud volcanoes in northern Italy 2 years ago. So I have been talking about this a lot already. I also wrote about it. You can find my paper in the NCGT journal. Volume 11, number 1, March 2023. Mountain water, a new approach to mountain farming, volcanism, glaciers, and the role of electricity. No, and the role of water in an electric environment. Now we got just scroll down a little bit. And I just before when I was about to make this video, I noticed something very, very interesting in this issue of the journal. I have to check this out later because it relates to something I have been researching as well, which is related to mountain water. I just call the whole topic mountain water because somehow it sounds very nicely. Mountain water is easy to remember. And just for example, here in this, we have Institute of Geophysics. They are like real scientists. I am the only one, I think, who managed to publish a few papers in this. I think there are 4 papers I managed to publish in this journal, and I might be the only one who isn't a real scientist. I am just an independent researcher and amateur natural philosopher. I am A3 anomalies, besides some other things. People settle near water. Almost all life forms need water. Water is very important for life on Earth. Consensus theory explains the circle of water, or maybe cycle could have been a better word, of water through evaporation, precipitation, accumulation. Meteorologists don't know much about volcanoes. Volcanologists don't know much about weather. This is how modern science works. Specialists for every small diversification of whatever science branch. How could anyone within that paradigm ever get a holistic picture of the whole? Yeah. How is it? This is a rock formation in basically my old hometown in Switzerland. Yeah, amazing geology. You can read the paper. Textbooks and geosciences may be wrong about how the Alps were formed. You know this, probably you recognize the colors and all that, suspicious observers. Yeah, Ben, maybe it's up to you to make some homework. You don't seem to be interested to make homework. But anyway, we have pile dwellings of the Alps region. There are like many. Oh, those little yellow dots are pile dwellings, like the one here, which got rebuilt. They don't really know why people were making these. That's a very interesting map also. Geothermal features of Europe. US military installations and geothermal features of Europe. Yeah, they know about these things. So we just scroll down a little bit because, for example, this one here, there has been an earthquake or several earthquakes in the Alps region. And I just went to look it up, and on Google Earth, I found this picture here. There's a mountain, you can see the clouds rising up. Yeah, it almost looks like a volcano, doesn't it? We have Victor Schauberger, and we have the White Rivers. One really interesting feature, of course, I made this, what, 2, 3 years ago, maybe longer. So I have been learning a whole lot of things about the whole topic since then. Oh. White rivers. One really interesting feature of the Alps are the white rivers. These kinds of white rivers, as I call them, aren't only present in the Alps. They can be found all over the world. Northern Italy, Udine, Italy, Parma, Italy, Walgau, Germany, France, Nalchik, Russia, Mount St. Helens, white rivers, all over the place. And I think I finally figured out the thing about the white rivers. It doesn't fit into this video because I try to keep it as short as possible. Of course, we have to talk about basic concepts of how basically Earth works and stuff like this. And I came to the conclusion that there must be a plasmod at the center of Earth. In other words, Earth is basically a geoid, which is still alive. For example, we also have here Portalsee. We have to scroll up a little bit. A screenshot from the floods in Brick with floating cars getting smashed against houses. 1993. I have been in this town, Brick, a few months after this catastrophe happened. I remember watching it on TV. It was amazing. Floating cars getting smashed against houses. The news were also mentioning the bad weather in the region at the time of the event. Brig is situated in one of those main valleys in the Alps, not too far away from the Alps' biggest glacier, the Aletsch Glacier. In the valley itself flows the Rhone River, which discharges into the Mediterranean Sea. Brig also has geothermal activity, which is used for the thermal bath. A new geothermal energy plant is planned there too. Furthermore, is there also a mineral water spring in relatively close proximity to the city, around 10 kilometers, but about 1,800 meters higher, is Lake Portel, a small lake with a crater or caldera-like form. From close inspection of satellite imagery, it is obvious the edges of the lake contain different layers of sediment. Some seem to be piled up in a manner like you would expect when there is a high water level and fine-grained sediment involved. It is very well possible this lake had an eruption in recent times, at least once. You might probably ask, eruption? What do you mean, a lake had an eruption? But let's just go on a little bit. This lake is the stream Saltina's source. The Saltina was blamed for the flood. The name Saltina comes from the Latin word saltare, to jump, and has records of flooding as early as the 14th century. We have to assume the stream's name is no coincidence and can be seen as a warning from the ancient people. Like earlier mentioned, many hints were there in plain sight all the time. Many just have been overlooked or they aren't taken serious anymore because for a long time nothing happened. The knowledge died out. A huge amount of water poured out of it in a very short amount of time. The water was quite likely perfectly drinkable in quality. This possibility should be taken into consideration. This is an assumption based on the absence of news about the water being poisonous. Because many of these types of mountains which spill out drinkable water and carry glaciers are actual volcanoes. It makes sense that no one expected them being actual volcanoes. The following pictures illustrate. Now let's just read to the rest, to the end of this. Actual volcanoes. The floods in Break were perhaps a non-poisonous cold lahar, a flash flood which is related to volcanic activity. Bad weather, heavy rain, and lightning were documented at the time of the event, indicating a huge electromagnetic potential was provided from the atmosphere. As much as the water which drops from the sky has different speeds according to the strength of the discharge, lightning may also reach upwards from the ground towards the heavens. Possibly, a weather system with enough electromagnetic potential could trigger an eruption from a sleeping cold water geyser, i.e., a cryptogeyser. The lake from above, its elevation is 2,460 meters above sea level. Here we have the Bortlesee, the drainage path, the city of Brieg. And the surroundings of the lake look basically like a caldera. If you look closer at the lake from above, Google Earth imagery, it seems to have a circumpolar pattern here. Here you can see it probably better with the ear rings or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I claim it's fed from below. It's spreading out in all directions, as you can see here also. Different colored sediments. It's not too well visible in this picture, but doesn't matter. Here we have the lake, drainage path, the city of Brieg, a planned geothermal energy plant here, and a thermal bath just beside them. Yeah. If you were in Iceland, for example, it's clear for everyone that yeah, we have the Blue Lagoon in Iceland, which is hot water, geothermal, yeah, because it's volcanic. But in Switzerland or in the Alps, we only have the geothermal activity, but no volcanoes. Really? This is where I differ, in my opinion. Conclusion: possibly glacier carrying mountains and mountains with craters on top, which are fed with groundwater, hence lakes, should be called cryptogeysers. Because they are active geological features, they should be treated with respect because they can be very dangerous. Millions of people live within the Alps region, many probably totally unaware of the danger potential of their environment, while glaciers are considered as contemporary lava streams made of water, which means it is part of a volcano, which do erupt with water, each according to its own frequency. This explains glaciers in a totally different context from the commonly accepted science. By the way, Grímsvötn volcano in Iceland is one of Europe's biggest volcanoes, and it's buried under Europe's biggest glacier. This may be not so much of a coincidence after all. So, in my presentation I made, let's make this as big as possible, in the EU Salon, Electric Universe Salon, which was a very exciting thing because it was a live stream. I have been talking about Mount Spur in the US, or maybe Canada, I don't know, maybe it's the US, doesn't matter really. Mount Spur is a volcano, and I think that glaciers are lava streams made of water. No snow needed. Here you can see a dark stream coming from the mountain and a white stream. So we didn't have any snow. We had snowfall here, that's why it's white, but no snowfall at all on this side. Really? And if you look at another picture, this really looks like a watery lava stream. It's a volcano after all. And if you go to the next slide, I presented also this one here, plain Morde Glacier. We took a look at this very recently. So let's go over to Google Earth if it loads. Here is Mount Spur. Let's look at some of the pictures here. And somehow it seems to lag all the time. Yeah, there's something going on. Check it out. And where is it? You have to zoom in a little bit. Let's put this away. Here we have this exact feature. We have green forest here. And yeah, it's September, I guess, late of September. And on this side we have a real glacier, so to say. Okay. So obviously, let's go down here. They don't merge. Yeah. Ain't it interesting? Apparently, you don't really need water in order for you don't really need snow in order for a glacier to form. Now that's also an interesting feature. And how comes? There's just mud and the wide rivers. But let me show you something else interesting. For this, we have to go over to Russia. And we will zoom in somewhere here. I think it's here. No. Just give me a second. We are too far north. Here it is. Pukachovsky Kryacezvoy volcano. Yeah, that's a mud volcano in Russia. Here are the people. So that's that's a rather big feature, right? mud volcano. There's mud coming out. And it's clay. The mud coming out of mud volcanoes is clay. And clay and lava are the same material, except for the water content. I don't know if that's a good idea, standing on this kind of thing. Yeah, check this out. Whoa. Ain't it amazing? Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, there's just in the middle of the grass, just popping out there. And I think, let's put on quickly the pictures, the photos, because there must be somewhere a very cool photograph. It's not here. Yeah, you get the idea. Let's put the pictures away again. I'm somewhat prepared for this video, but it's somehow hard to remember all the stuff I want to show, because there would be so much, and I could talk for hours or days about this same topic, and it just doesn't never gets boring. This might be also a mud volcano. You can see the circular feature here. All right. Vulcan. Yeah, it's a volcano. And in my last video, I have been talking about northern Italy, about the huge amount of mud volcanoes in northern Italy no one talks about. Now let's make the map clean. Hopefully we find Italy without any markings. Actually, there are some markings. Check it out. I spent a good part of this day today with building a map. Copy paste and let me show you first something here. That's from the Watchers. If you're interested in natural stuff going on Earth, that's a good site. They are somewhat up to date. New mud volcano forms in Italy after recent earthquakes. November 2016. Get notified when something big happens. Maybe not now. A new mud volcano has formed this week in a field in Italian municipality of Santa Vittoria in Matenano. Following a recent increase in seismic activity, the volcano is located about 30 kilometers east of the 6.5 earthquake of October 30 in the province of Fermo, Marche. Marche. I have no idea how to spell this region. Anyway, maybe that's the one Dutch Sins made warnings about. There are 6 active mud volcanoes in the neighboring municipality of Monteleone di Fermo, located along the river Ete. Since the latest increase in seismic activity, all of them were reported to erupt clay. Yeah, clay. While another one was formed suddenly and with no prior warning earlier this week. The most representative of the volcanoes, named the Vulcanello, is positioned in the middle of the field as a well-covered mound of native vegetation. According to Marco Fabiani, the mayor of Monteleone, the phenomena is of sedimentary volcanism origin. In Italy, the phenomena is connected to underground deposits of organic material, natural gas, and hydrocarbon. I highly doubt there's any organic material involved in this too much. But anyway, we just read what's written here. When such material remains trapped in impermeable clay lenses, the considerable pressure causes fractures or pushes the material through areas of non-consolidated clay, dragging with it deep layers of silt. Yes, that's the white stuff where the right rivers form. Fossil water reservoirs or aquifers. Let's see if this works. Yeah, obviously here it just popped out of the ground. And it's not big. It didn't obviously make too much damage. But anyway, you would probably be surprised if something would happen like this in your backyard all of a sudden or beneath your house. So okay, I think you get the idea. Someone is checking out what kind of stuff it is. The volcanoes have been subject to environmental protection and the phenomena is a subject of the ongoing study. It is suspected the recent increase in activity and appearance of the new volcano is related to a recent series of strong earthquakes in central Italy, which have likely affected the geology of the region. Sorry. The latest of the strong earthquake 6.5 was recorded in 6. Okay, the appearance of the new volcano. It doesn't really look like many people would assume a volcano looks with red hot lava and stuff like this, but it's a volcano. What do we have here? ProMud, definition of a multidisciplinary monitoring protocol for mud volcanoes. In Italy, four main geographical zones host mud volcanoes: the northern Apennines, primarily the Emilia-Romagna region, the central Apennines, Marche-Abruzzo region, the southern Apennines, Basilicata, Calabria, and Campania regions in Sicily. Italian mud volcanoes are generally small and rather flat, and characterized by a continuous and fairly quiet explosion of gas, water, and mud. Yeah, muddy waters, clay, mud volcano. Here we have this map about the structural framework of the Apennines, Italy, and location of the study areas of mud volcanism. I won't read you all these articles and stuff. I basically just want to show you pictures. Obviously, here we have some fresh stuff coming up that's dried out and it turns white. Funny enough, yeah, the white rivers, fresh flow. We have those little funny cones there. They would be probably funny to ride with a bike. What do we have here? Mud volcanoes in central Italy, subsoil characterization through a multidisciplinary approach. We will dive into these later on. Access through your organization or purchase the PDF. You only get the abstract and a little bit of the introduction. Here we get actually pretty much. But again, access through your organization. I don't have any organization. I don't belong to any organization. I am an independent researcher. This we already watched. That's one again, access through your organization or purchase. Volcano eruptions and earthquakes in the northern Apennines and Sicily. This we will check out later. What do we have here? We have already checked this out. Now let's take a look at this. If you are interested into reading scientific papers that are behind paywalls and stuff, I really recommend you to check out this page, Sci-Hub, Russia. There are, or has been, I don't know if there's still like a Swedish version and some other version, but until now, in recent times, the Russian version is the only one that works. Volcano eruptions and earthquakes in the northern Apennines and Sicily, Italy. The relations between earthquakes and the eruption of mud volcanoes have been investigated at the Bede Apennine margin of the northern Apennines and in Sicily. Some of these volcanoes experience eruptions or increased activity in connection with historical seismic events, showing a good correlation with established thresholds of hydrological response, liquefaction, to earthquakes. However, the majority, let's zoom in a little bit. How maybe it doesn't here, maybe. I don't know how to get rid of this. No, it doesn't work. So we have to zoom out again. However, the majority of eruptions have been documented to be independent of seismic activity. I read this once again. Listen very carefully. However, the majority of eruptions have been documented to be independent of seismic activity. In other words, a mud volcano doesn't need an earthquake to erupt. And as I just earlier explained or read to you in my own paper about atmospheric electromagnetic potentials possibly have the potential to trigger cold water geysers and such things. Yeah, it doesn't need an earthquake because water is attracted to electricity. There's a whole lot of electricity above our heads. However, the majority of eruptions have been documented to be independent of seismic activity. Let me repeat again one other thing. The only difference between clay and so-called real lava, the red hot stuff everybody knows, is the water content. And water follows the electricity. So it doesn't need an earthquake for a mud volcano to erupt. Being mud volcanoes, often not activated even when the earthquakes were of suitable magnitude and the epicenter at the proper distance for the triggering. This behavior suggests that paroxysmal activity of mud volcanoes depends upon the reaching of a specific critical state directed by internal fluid pressure and implies that the strain caused by the passage of seismic waves can activate only mud volcanoes in near critical conditions, i.e., close to the eruption. Yeah, that's what they think, but I think differently. So here we have the same map again. Apparently this will come across us again. Here we have the Po plain So this is not the sea or Mediterranean Sea. This is the plain of the Po River. I will show you shortly what I mean. I want to basically show you just one very interesting things, or one interesting thing. The oldest and perhaps most famous chronicle reporting an apparent link between a mud volcano eruption and an earthquake is likely that provided by the Roman writer Plinius, who reported evidence in his Historia Mundi Naturalis for a large eruption contemporaneous with the destructive earthquake of 91 BC that struck important towns, Reggio Emilia and Modena, nearby the Pete Apennine margin. This writer described the 91 BC eruption as skyscraping flames and two steam columns seen from about 10 kilometers distance to occur in the Apennines foothills. Hopefully you have seen the eruption in Colombia from the mud volcano with skyscraping flames. Okay? And two steam columns. Yeah, hot water. If you can see steam columns from about 10 kilometers distance, they are big. The locality of this relevant historical eruption has been traditionally placed at the Monte Gibbio Salza. Salza is the Italian name for a mud volcano, but to date its exact position is still not clearly defined. Given its importance, this topic is further discussed in the following section. I try to find papers like, for example, this one here, but it's in Italian. Anyway, let's go on to the next thing. For example, mud volcanoes in Italy, Giovanni Martinelli and Alan Judd. Because here we have yet another map. Mud volcanoes, mud volcanoes, mud volcano, mud volcanoes. And here we have this very long list. And I'm not going basically chronologically through this video because this should have been showed a little bit later. But number one, okay, this is a list. Locations and characteristics of Italian mud volcanoes. It starts at 1 and it ends at 61. known mud volcanoes. And we are going rather fast through these papers because I wanted to show you pictures. Some of these pictures, they're only visible in these papers. And this is one of the papers that has been behind a paywall, or you would have to pay for it. But as an independent researcher, you will find ways around the walls. You have to. Seismic section of offshore mud diapirs in the Italian Adriatic Sea. Yeah, mud volcanoes in the sea. Who would have guessed? Like I said in my last video, Earth is the water planet. There might be some more pictures. I just wanted to show you basically the pictures. There's yet another one. The stress environment of Italy incorporating data from Montone. Yeah, we are probably talking about so-called plate tectonics. Let's go on to the next one. Maybe we were watching twice the same things. Yeah, this we haven't seen yet. This we have seen once. We see this once again, the same map. This we have seen already. Maybe you're watching the same paper once again. Yeah, it's the same. Let's go to this one. Mud volcanoes in central Italy, subsoil characterization through a multidisciplinary approach. Is this the one that has 31 pages? Doesn't say anywhere. Yeah, but here we have some more pictures. There's just a mud volcano in the field. Maybe I have to search once the video I made about Rome. And there is a rather special place within Rome, the Vatican. Some of you may have heard of. And at the same time, I want to welcome everyone into the age of Aquarius. In other words, the age of Pisces is over. And many of you probably know that Jesus is associated with the fish. Jesus brought the fish. Yeah, because Jesus was representing the age of Pisces. Yeah, it's over. We are in the age of Aquarius. And we are talking about mud volcanoes that erupt, muddy waters, mud pond, drainage channel. We have water. Yeah. Maybe somewhere in the Bible it's written about the coming forth of the waters. Maybe it's not so much of a coincidence me talking about mud volcanoes. We have maps and stuff. I will put links below. You can take your time and look at these papers. We have those basic diagrams that geologists make. Then we have these kind of low depth penetration artifacts of measurements. Very colorful pictures. Some of them might be very accurate, but the problem is basically the interpretation of these. In other words, the best picture in the world doesn't really help you if you don't know what you're looking at, right? The colors don't really help. So this is stuff I've been looking at, yeah, for a few years already, apparently. Clays and silts, clays, silts and sands, clays. And of course the water. Overpressured reservoir of water. Overpressured mud reservoir. Yeah, you don't get any mud without the water. Otherwise it would be just dry earth. So we had this now as well. Now let's go to Google Earth, because this I have to save for later. And for some reason it turned out that marine or naval researchers, they are somewhat, let's say, interesting. Some of them are very hard to find. Information about these things are very hard to find. So, map contents, geological journal. This is one of the papers we just watched. Mud volcanoes of Italy. So I took my time and plotted all the 61 mud volcanoes onto the map. And also 3 earthquakes that might be seen here. This one, this one, this one. I'm not sure about this. 1.4, maybe it's there. 1.4, yeah, it is. So, on this map, you see all the known mud volcanoes according to this paper. And there are the location of these, as far as I understood, is not necessarily the salsa, the mud volcano itself. It's the closest place where you get with a car. Okay. And we won't go look up each of them. It would be a very, very long video looking up 61 volcanoes. We just take a look at a few of these because, like I said earlier, yeah, you probably would be surprised if this kind of thing would pop up in your backyard or beneath your house. Yeah, you think only crazy people would build houses on top of mud volcanoes? Let's just zoom in on this random one. What's going on with Google Earth? Do we load? Go on with it. There are people watching. Yeah, you wouldn't build a house on top of a volcano. So probably I assume the mud volcano is basically in this area. Maybe. Since that's the closest where you can go with a car. Now let's check out some other one. We are still in southern Italy, where we have like real volcanoes too. Cattolica Eraclea Pisana. In my mountain water paper, I also mentioned about many older churches, like the real ones, so to say, not modern. They were built on top of water springs in order to protect the water, because the church has to have the possibility, if there's anyone, random dudes coming around and they want to join the Christian belief, they need to get baptized. And in order for someone to get baptized, you need the water. So it just makes sense if you would protect the water source in order for you to have always the water and don't let any sheep slip. Because if you don't have water at hand. Apparently, there is a mud volcano. And there's a church as well. I think that's a church because it has a cross shape. Do we have some others? Yeah. A known mud volcano, and there's a city on top of it. And there's a park. If we would have really much time and look at all of these, I'm very sure in many of these places you will find fountains and stuff like this. Vicenti Giovano. Yeah, just another backyard volcano. Here we have 2 or 3 even at the same place, which is a bit strange. Or maybe it's just interesting. Let's search for the Nirano. I think it's more in the north. Nirano is somewhere here. Let's zoom out a bit. I've been talking about this area having many mud volcanoes. And for scale, here is the glacier I've been talking about many times, showing many times to many people. Is it this one? Mont Bova? Blainmore Glacier? Yeah, I think it's this one. Is it? Mont Bauban. Yeah, it's this one. Yeah, actually, we could leave them on. It's just it gets really messed up. There's too much. Now let's put it off, and I will show you the white rivers I've been talking about in my paper. Just here, for example, the white river. This river is considered as alkaline. Yeah, and all the mud volcanoes are rather alkaline. So here is a quake. Here is a quake. And here's a quake. That's a mud volcano. An official mud volcano. Let's put out some pictures. Maybe we can see something. No. Now we don't see anything anymore. Let's put them off. That's water. Yeah, but let's check out still one because there has been a few where we actually can see on the satellite imagery the actual volcano. Yeah, I think it's here. I don't know. Maybe. As they have been saying in those papers, they are generally not that big. Of course, there are bigger ones. Yeah, here we have something. Let's check out some pictures. Maybe this is one of these we have seen in the papers. And they're white. When it dries up, it turns white. Not always, but very often. Yeah, I guess you get the idea about what a mud volcano is. So, and if you think that "Oh, there are many mud volcanoes, there are many. And these are 61 mud volcanoes in Italy. And if we look at this map here and look at the so-called real volcanoes, what's going on here? The real volcanoes, 3 hours ago, 3.5. Oh, yeah, there are like few people freaking out again on YouTube, showing their scared faces in the thumbnail. Oh, it's an earthquake. Oh. Where is it? Yeah, that's Campifligre, for those who don't know. So-called supervolcano. 2.7 kilometers in depth, so it's very, very shallow. Now, apparently, there's something going on, and this one is just there might be thousands of quakes. So we have the real volcanoes also being activated. And if we look at the map, we have the so-called real volcanoes, and there are, I don't know, maybe 20, 25. And here we have 61 mud volcanoes. Additionally, and I want to point out these are all on land. Now let me show you a map I found, which will blow your socks off. This is found in one of the papers. I can show you the paper shortly. All those yellow dots that you can see here, every yellow dot is a mud volcano. A submerged mud volcano off the coast of Egypt, off the coast of Greece, off the coast of Italy, in the Strait of Gibraltar. And we are also off here to, what is it? Krim Island or peninsula? Is it an island or peninsula? I'm not sure. And the orange dots are the mud volcanoes on land. So just according to this one single map, we might have to conclude there are much more mud volcanoes than probably most people would have expected. So now let's search quickly for this paper where you can find this map, which is a marine letter. Observatoire océanologique UPMC, chemin de la Sarre, Villefranche-sur-Mer. Right? When is this made? Does it say anywhere? 2014. Existing knowledge on the distribution of mud volcanoes and other significant fluid-free gas venting features, mud cones, mud pies, mud brine pools, mud carbonate cones, gas chimneys, and, in some cases, pockmark fields, discovered on the sea floor of the Mediterranean Sea and in the nearby Gulf of Cadiz, has been compiled using regional geophysical information, including multi-beam coverage of most deepwater areas. Yeah, this is probably one of those papers we are not supposed to see. Yeah, remember I was talking about the paper with the 31 pages? And first, I thought that, what an interesting paper. Not one single picture, okay? And basically, acknowledgements, we thank the crews, technicians, blah, blah, blah. Here is where it ends. Very often, when you reach the acknowledgements section, you know that you're at the end of the paper. And there are a lot of references. It's a very long list of references. Somewhat not very clearly made, no numbering and stuff. And then, after you think you have seen it all, the references already stopped here, then we get to the nice things. Figures. Morphology of the Mediterranean Sea region. Yeah, there's something going on here, apparently. Morphologies of mud volcanoes in the central Mediterranean ridge. Accretionary prism between Crete, Greece, to the north and the passive continental margin of Libya to the south. So here we have Greece and Libya. Maybe here, I'm not sure. Maybe that's the shore, northern Africa. And apparently they found something here. And these kinds of maps are very, very, very hard to find on the internet. These kind of pictures, they are very, very hard to find. And I'm not wondering why. Stuff going on here. Morphologies of various fluid sea pitches featuring on features on the Egyptian continental margin. At a regional scale, the wide caldera-like Menes Depression. Dupré et al. This volume, enormous mud cones at the foot of the continental slope. Fields of pockmarks on the Egyptian continental slope. Yeah, pockmarks. Pockmarks. Right? I think these are the pockmarks. Yeah, you probably can imagine for someone like me who is interested in this, these kind of papers, it's like finding gold. We have maps like these. And I wonder what these blue things are. Backscatter signatures of various fluid sea pitches features on the seabed of the eastern Mediterranean Sea. At a regional scale, the Mediterranean ridge is characterized by numerous high backscattered dark gray to black patches, often associated with mud fluid expulsion, particularly along the western branch and central domain Olympi field of the Mediterranean ridge. Rectangles indicate locations of features shown on. Yeah, but what are these blue areas? I don't know. Doesn't say anywhere. For just that's Cyprus, Turkey, Greece. What is it again? Which has been in the news last year. Santorini. I think that's Santorini. Might be. I'm not sure. Maybe it's somewhere here. But it's the Greek. And then we have stuff like this. Can you imagine if I would have access to this kind of data? That's underwater. There's a lake beneath the sea. Lakes beneath the sea. Because there might be so much salt in this water that is coming up from the ground that it just stays here. It has a different density. Seabed photographs showing various details of mud volcanoes in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Yeah, actually, this is one thing I came thinking about today. Maybe these kind of things here on the bottom of the sea are the reason why our seas are salty. Ah! Take this, YouTube. Seabed photographs showing various details of mud volcanoes in the eastern Mediterranean Sea. Brine fluid pool on top of Napoli, south of Crete. Egyptian continental margin, brine fluid pool of Hefren mud cone. Brine lake with bacterial filaments and brine stream on a mud cone. Carbonate pavements and live worms. Carbonate chimneys, pockmark, and fragments of orthogenic carbonate crusts, whatever that means. And then we get to the maps. Yeah, apparently that's Italy. We have it's turnaround. It's not north to south. Here we have the Adriatic area. And all these dots are those distribution of mud volcanoes and other fluid mud releasing structures, yellow dots, in the western Mediterranean Sea and Gulf of Cadiz. Then we get even a bigger map, or the area of the map gets even bigger. Here we have Italy, Spain, Portugal, Morocco. Let's see if there is an earthquake or not. I made a warning about earthquake activity, possible upcoming earthquake activity. Here we have the Greek arc, Cyprus, Egypt. Every yellow dot is a mud volcano. And that's the map I showed you. No, I think it's this one. It's the very last map. This one. The very last map of this. Portugal, Spain, Egypt, Cyprus. Every yellow dot is a mud volcano. Every orange dot is a mud volcano too. So, these are the known mud volcanoes, which are just listed in this one paper. So there might be a possibility that there are more mud volcanoes. Large-scale distributions of mud volcanoes, dots, and tectonic features, dotted lines. How do we get out of this full screen? Because I wanted to show you still something. Very amazing. Now we have been talking about mud volcanoes. Let's go on to this map again. And we go here. Sweden, Denmark. Let's put on some exploration features in order for you to wrap your head around where we are. Denmark, Sweden, Germany. And greetings to Germany. Greetings to Real Bounty. Now let me think just where is it? I haven't placed the mark yet. I just wanted to show you first Hornfiskron. Where we had Hornfiskron. Hornfiskron. I've been making several videos about Hornfiskron. Yeah, it's here, Hornfiskron. Check it out. Back in the days, I claimed that this might be a mud volcano. Yeah, there's an interesting erratic boulder here. I made videos about this area, claiming that this might be a mud volcano. Just look at it. We have been watching about several mud volcanoes. And I think that's a mud volcano. But if you think that's interesting, then let me show you what I found today. Malmö, a rather big city, Copenhagen, Roskilde, there is some music going on every now and then. But in the middle of all this, there is this Saltholm. Okay? I think salt in Swedish or what is it? Danish language means salt. And we just watched at the other volcanoes where we have the brine, which is very, very, very salty stuff. And there is on this little island, not there is this one, this stuff here. Yeah, Starford. Is it? I really doubt that this is a totally natural feature here. I think that's made by someone. Then we have this feature here. This might be a salt lake. Yeah, the brine coming out of mud volcanoes is every now and then very salty. But look at what we have here. I claim, I have the boldness to claim that this is a mud volcano. Or it's just one of the calderas of a very big mud volcano. Now let's just measure this quickly. From the wide edge to the other wide edge, 43 meters. There's some other stuff going on here. Maybe that's for cattle or something, I don't know. Yeah, there's actually another one. Very interesting. So we have at least two of these features that seem to resemble mud volcanoes. All right, I've been talking now, talking quite long. I've been showing you many things. And I guess it's enough for now. I will continue investigations. I will continue to look at things. Maybe I find some more interesting stuff. And in case we don't meet, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Thanks.